We're here looking at a piece of used equipment, in this case a small rotary mower, and using this as an example of a power takeoff powered equipment. So it has the power takeoff shaft coming from the tractor, bringing the power back to the rotary mower. I want to take a look at some of the different things to consider when you're looking at a piece of used equipment, and in particular a piece that has the power takeoff coming into it. So on this mower, we'll start from the rear and move our way to the front. This one has tires, no flat tires, that support the machine, and just make sure that they're in good condition and the pieces are all present on these. Take a look at it and make sure that the lubrication is there. In this case, these have regular wheel bearings in them that would need to be taken out and greased occasionally. So they don't have grease fittings present, but they are still greasable and an area that would need maintenance over time. Looking a little bit further forward, the chains on the back on a mower keep debris from being thrown to the back or out the back, and those should be there and present all the way around and present where they're supposed to be as a safety concern. On the back of this mower also, and on the back of most newer equipment, there are reflectors so that on the road they show the piece of equipment at night or when it's a little bit dusky out. Moving a little bit further forward is the mechanism to raise and lower the wheels. The hydraulic cylinder is attached to this mechanism. And just take a look and make sure those pins are all straight, that the pins aren't bent or the tabs that they're fastened to aren't bent. And the hydraulic cylinder itself, when you can see the exposed part of the cylinder, that it's got good chrome on it, isn't rusted or pitted, and is straight, not bent at all. The hydraulic hose that comes back from the tractor to control that cylinder should have the rubber covering intact, shouldn't have any metal exposed, and should be in good condition all the way from the attachment to the cylinder all the way back up to the attachment on the tractor itself. Looking at this hydraulic cylinder mount, you can see that it has been replaced, that somewhere along the line this cylinder was either added in a different position or the mount broke on the original piece and was refitted and repainted. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to consider when you're looking at this, that it has had some wear or something happened that required that repair. Looking back to the blade itself, on any kind of a piece of equipment that has a cutting blade, you're going to want to know what kind of condition that blade is in. On this mower, it's lowered right now down to the ground, and there's not really space to get underneath it to look at that, so you may need to raise it up and make sure if it's something like that you block it so that you can safely look underneath and see what kind of condition those blades are in, if they're going to need to be replaced soon or if they're in good condition and will last still for a long time on this machine. Next thing moving forward, see the gearbox here that takes the power from the power takeoff shaft, turns it 90 degrees and drops it down to the blade that's actually doing the cutting underneath. There are two ports on here, one's on the side, one's on the top. The one on the side is the one that would be taken out to check the level of the oil, and you should do that to make sure the oil level is up to that plug. Take the plug out and see if the oil is right there. When you have the plug out and looking at the oil, check the condition of the oil. Oil that's in good condition should just look like fairly clear gear oil, but if it's gotten water into it somehow, when that oil and water mixture churns around inside the gearbox, it'll turn kind of a milky color. It might be gray, almost looking like gray porch paint, or it might just have some white streaks in it that indicate the water's in there. If there's water in there, that might indicate that around the top of the gearbox that there's a seal that's leaking, and as the machine sits out in the weather and in the rain and the snow in the wintertime, the water is somehow getting down into that gearbox and would be concerned down the road. If you were to purchase it, you'd want to change the oil and keep an eye on it to see if it was indeed getting water in there. On the top port, this top port where you add the oil should have, in this case it's a small metal cap on there, and that keeps the water out but also allows air to move in and out of the gearbox as the gearbox heats and cools and expands and contracts the air in there. It needs to be able to have air move in and out, and that's what the purpose of this breather is. If the cap's missing off the breather, then water can enter directly into that and would be getting into the oil. Moving on forward, this master shield on the front of the gearbox protects the moving components underneath that, and also with power takeoff shaft coming into that should have this shield in place so that there's no place in here for someone to get caught or something to get caught on a power takeoff shaft. When this machine is running, there's absolutely no reason to be in this area, and there shouldn't be anybody there, so that's the safest way. But these shields should still be in place just in case something were to happen and something were to get in the way there. Looking at these shields, the machine right now is turned off, the engine is off, and the power takeoff shaft is off. So you should check and make sure that those shaft covers are free to move on the shaft. When these are operating, there's a chain that fastens to the machine at some point, and it holds that shield from turning, so the PTO shaft itself turns inside the shield, and the shaft on the outside, this piece on the outside, is stationary. That should all be in good condition, should be present, and should continue on up all the way to the joint. And this is protected all the way to this end quite well. And then as it comes around to another universal joint, this universal joint cover has actually been worn back, and this piece here shouldn't be showing. This gap should be covered as well to make sure that the turning PTO shaft isn't exposed. Again, as you move forward with this PTO shaft, it should be free to turn on the shaft just as the other one was, and a chain holds it so it can't rotate, and the shaft again rotates inside of that shield. Decals are present on here to warn of the danger of the power takeoff shaft, and those should be there. Again, on the front of this machine are the chains that make sure that debris can't come flying out the front as easily as if they weren't there, and they should be again intact and present on the front of the machine. The tongue of this mower is heavy enough that it requires a jack stand to take this piece of equipment off of the tractor, and in this case that jack stand is fastened back a little ways at this point on the mower, needs to be taken from there and put on the tongue and then used to take the weight off so that the pin can be pulled and the mower can be detached from the tractor readily. If you're purchasing this piece of equipment, you would want to make sure that the jack stand was not bent and was in good shape and could easily raise the mower and raise the weight that needed to be raised. Again, looking at any used piece of equipment, check to make sure that the frame members are straight, look for any welding that might have been done on them, look for anything that might have been broken at one time or another. But this being a fairly new piece of equipment is in good shape, and the paint is still intact, and there are very few places that have been reshaped or rewelded. So those are some of the things to consider when you're looking at a piece of equipment that's rotary powered. The power takeoff shaft, the gearbox are the main components of the power on this machine. The hydraulic hoses, the wheels, the tires, and the safety chains that keep debris from being thrown.